Before humanity, the most severe diplomatic incident in galactic history involved a misplaced comma. After humanity, it involved bare ass and a universal bounty. The Varan diplomats' throat sacs were already pulsing crimson before humanity's ambassador even reached the podium. And so, in the spirit of mutual cooperation and with great hope for the future, Earth formally requests...
Request!
Counselor Alex's interruption crackled like a whip through the assembly hall.
Your species still believes fire is a significant technological achievement. You've barely mastered faster-than-light travel, and only because you stumbled upon derelict Proximan technology. 30% of your planet's population still thinks your world is flat.
Actually, it's closer to 2%, Ambassador Charleston corrected politely. Though I understand the confusion. They're very loud on social media. The diplomatic assembly was broadcast all through the galaxy. Everyone waited to see if humanity would be welcome amongst the great galactic powers. Down in the bowels of Tray Station 9, approximately 20 light minutes from the fancy diplomatic chambers, Kessler's Cantina was experiencing its own form of interspecies communication.
So there I am.
Draken, the Unbroken, slurred, his third arm gesturing wildly enough to knock over someone's drink.
Face to face with one of these humans. It's screaming, showing its little blunt teeth, and I'm thinking, this is the apex predator? This is what scared off the Proximan scouts?
The Mercenary's audience, a mix of rookie bounty hunters, off-duty freight runners, and one very lost wedding party, leaned in with morbid fascination.
It threw a chair at me.
Draken continued, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper.
Not a stun chair, not even a smart chair with targeting systems, just wood and metal. The same caveman building materials those idiots have been using for centuries.
Everyone looked horrified. A few idiots in the crowd gasped. Behind the bar, Reggie Daniels methodically polished a glass that had been cleaned 10 minutes ago and tried to hide his laugh, as if the current seats they were all sitting in weren't also wood and metal. But because humans were new to the galactic scene, everything humans did was wrong or scandalous in some way. Reggie's hands moved with the kind of muscle memory that came from decades of the work. But everyone watching carefully might have noticed how his knuckles whitened slightly when Draken called humans idiot cavemen. The scars on those knuckles told their own stories. Jagged ones from broken bottles, clean ones from knives, and one peculiar crescent shape that looked suspiciously like a bite mark. On the dozen screens scattered around the bar, humanity's first contact continued its descent into diplomatic disaster. Reggie turned his attention back to the screen. Your technology is held together with adhesive strips, another counselor chimed in. The Bathari representative didn't bother hiding his amusement. Your most advanced artificial intelligence loses at strategic games to your own offspring. Your primary form of global communication is pictures of cats. To be fair, Ambassador Charleston maintained her professional smile, though her assistant noticed her left eye had developed a slight twitch. Our cats are very photogenic.
You still haven't cured death.
Alex's throat sacs reached maximum inflation.
How can we consider you for council membership when you haven't even achieved basic immortality?
The bar patrons winced collectively. Even the methane breathers in their isolation suits seemed to feel the burn. Reggie sighed. Draken, lost in his own narrative, hadn't noticed the room's attention shifting to the screens.
But here's the best part. They're pack animals, right? Hurt one and they all go insane. Now, I accidentally stepped on one of their little dogs. And suddenly, the whole building wants my head. They're throwing bottles, screaming their primitive heads off. And one of them, I swear, on my nest mother's grave.
tried to stab me with a sharpened eating utensil.
What kind of eating utensil? Asked a rookie, mandibles clicking nervously.
They call it a fork. 4 parallel spikes on a handle. Absolutely barbaric.
Draken shuddered theatrically.
That's when I knew the Earth quarantine was justified. 100 cycles of isolation? Should have been permanent. Any species that turns eating implements into weapons is too dangerous for civilized space.
A bottle slid down the bar with perfect accuracy, stopping exactly in front of Draken. The expensive stuff, Altarian whiskey, aged in the gravitational field of a neutron star. Compliments of the house, Reggie said quietly, for surviving humanity's worst. Draken raised the bottle in a mock salute.
Finally, someone who appreciates what I went through. You know, I still have nightmares about that music. Rhythmic screaming over percussion. They call it, death metal. Death metal! They literally named a music genre after entropy and minerals.
Draken was so drunk it seemed lost on him he was even conversing with the very species he was complaining of. Sounds traumatic, Reggie agreed, his voice carefully neutral. A few regulars who knew him well caught something else underneath. The same tone he used right before bar fights turned educational. On screen, Ambassador Charleston had stopped pretending to smile. Counselors, with all due respect.
Respect?
Alex's voice shifted to absolute mockery.
Your species still engages in recreational violence. You poison yourselves with ethanol for amusement. You've weaponized everything from split atoms to sound waves. The only reason we're even having this discussion is because the Proximate Empire marked your system as a navigation hazard, and galactic law requires us to assess any species that achieves FTL travel.
Even if they achieve it by accident, the Bathari added helpfully.
Even if they glue and tape it together,
muttered someone else. The human delegation behind Ambassador Charleston had gone very still. So, what you are saying, Ambassador Charleston's voice had dropped to a conversational tone that made her aide step backward, is that this isn't actually a membership hearing. It's a formality. You've already decided we're not worthy.
We decided that decades ago,
Alex confirmed.
The moment we saw your internet. Do you have any idea what percentage of your data traffic is dedicated to arguing about fictional characters' romantic compatibility?
Shipping, Charleston said flatly.
I'm sorry?
It's called shipping, and it's art. Draken banged on the table loudly, drawing everyone's attention back to himself. He was now deeply into his 4th bottle, his stories growing more elaborate.
And their weather! Don't get me started on their weather. It's like their planet is actively trying to kill them. Rain that melts things, wind that throws buildings around, and they just live with it. They give the storms names like pets. Oh, here comes Hurricane Rufus. Bet it board up the windows. Insane!
You seem to know a lot about Earth, one of the rookies observed.
3 days,
Draken said proudly.
3 days on that death world before I extracted myself. Longest any non-human has lasted without diplomatic protection.
Actually, Reggie set another glass down with a slight clink. The record is 3 years. Draken scoffed.
How would you know, Bartender?
Because I met a guy on Earth. Reggie continued polishing. I live there. The bar went so quiet, you could hear the station's recycling systems humming. Draken's crest, which had been a confident purple, faded to a sickly beige.
Yo!
It seemed Reggie's species had finally caught up to Draken's drunken state. Human, born in Detroit, learned bartending in Dublin, did a stint in Neo-Tokyo before coming out here. Reggie set down his glass. Draken, unwilling to be put down, glared at Reggie.
And you think that makes you special, doesn't it? You learned how to pour a damn drink. Good for you.
Reggie leaned over the counter toward Draken, meeting his eyes directly with quiet rage.
Seems like you're enjoying it, eh?
Draken spat at Reggie. Reggie barely dodged the wad of spit that came flying at him.
Get your ugly, yellow, no-good keister out of my goddamn bar. You're cut off, and I'm taking the keys to your transport ship.
Draken growled with anger.
You can't do that! You can't do that! This isn't a human bar!
It sure as hell is now, with a human running it, Reggie shouted. Everyone's attention swiveled wildly from the escalated altercation between Reggie and Draken and the council meeting on screen. Ambassador Charleston had stood up. Counselors, she said, walking toward the central holo projector. I want to thank you for this illuminating experience. Earth came here in good faith, hoping to join a community of equals. Instead, we found a bunch of xenophobic assholes who judge species by their history and their alcohol tolerance.
Ambassador!
Alex's sax pulsed warning patterns.
You will return to your seat immediately.
No, Charleston said simply. I don't think I will. She looked directly into the primary broadcast camera, the one streaming to quintillions of beings across known space, the one that would make this moment history. Slowly, deliberately, with the grace of a ballet dancer and the timing of a stand-up comedian, Ambassador Sally Charleston raised her middle finger to the Galactic Council. The gesture was universal. Even species without fingers understood it. But wait, Charleston added conversationally, still maintaining eye contact with the camera. There's more. She turned around, dropped her perfectly tailored diplomatic pants, and gave the entire Galactic Council humanity's palest, most diplomatic moon. The human delegation, as if they had rehearsed this, they hadn't, but humans are remarkably synchronized in their pettiness, stood as one. Some added their own gestures. One delegate, clearly from Australia, dropped his pants and also mooned the council, while flipping them off with both hands between his legs. They walked out in formation, leaving the different species of counselors in various states of shock, outrage, and in one unfortunate case, stress molting.
They cannot get away with this. Guards, put out a bounty. We'll make sure they never leave their pathetic planet again.
In Kessler's cantina, the silence stretched like taffy. Then every screen, every datapad, every augmented reality overlay, and 3 people's cybernetic implants lit up with the same message. Universal bounty alert. Species, human, soul 3. Status, kill or capture. Preference, alive. Reward, 50,000 credits per confirmed specimen. Sponsor, classified, council override. Warning, subject considered extremely dangerous. Addendum, approach with maximum force. 53 sets of alien eyes turned toward the bar, toward the scarred bartender who had just set down his polishing cloth with a sigh. Well, Reggie cracked his knuckles, producing a sound like breaking kindling. This is unfortunate. The first bottle came from Draken's table. Of course it did. 20 years of military training guided his throw. Years of bartending guided Reggie's dodge. He caught the bottle one-handed, examined the label with professional disapproval, and sent it back with interest. It caught a Regalian bouncer in what they optimistically called their face, sending him through a table of Octurian traders who'd been minding their own business. The traders, now covered in whatever Regalians leaked when unconscious, joined the fray on principle.
Human!
Someone screamed, and then Kessler's cantina exploded like a fusion grenade made of bad decisions and worse alcohol. The Vorthan mercenary vaulted the bar, plasma knife humming. Reggie introduced his face to the vintage earth whiskey he had been saving for his retirement. The bottle survived. The Vorthan didn't. Two rookies tried the classic pincer move. Reggie grabbed the soda gun, an ancient Earth invention that most aliens found quaint, and demonstrated why carbonated water at pressure was banned in 15 systems. They went down screaming about chemical weapons and their burning ocular organs. An Exari wrapped her tentacles around Reggie's throat. He grabbed two of them and demonstrated why human joints bent in directions that made other species uncomfortable. She let go, whimpering. Draken himself came over the bar like the veteran he was, military-grade plasma blade in one hand, stunner in the other.
Nothing personal, human. 50,000 credits is 50,000 credits.
You. Reggie's eyes had gone flat.
Oh, it's personal, you haggard, blustering drunk. You primitive weakling. I'm sure the council wouldn't mind if I just bring in one dead human,
Draken chuckled.
But the rest can be alive.
Reggie's response was a barstool to Draken's crest, followed by commentary on his parentage that the translator refused to parse. The fight spilled into the main floor. Reggie moved like water. 3 decades of mixed martial arts and usually stopping bar brawls suddenly came in handy. He bounced the Centaurian skull off the jukebox. It started playing human jazz. He used an Exari's own tentacles to strangle 2 other bounty hunters. He somehow set 3 different species on fire using nothing but a vintage Zippo and what appeared to be cooking spray. Someone grabbed him from behind and lifted him up, trying to put his arms in restraints. Another alien charged at both of them, and Reggie kicked out his legs. The alien stumbled backward. The arms around Reggie loosened as someone grabbed his captor from behind and started choking him out. Everyone was fighting each other in a chaotic storm of violence and greed. Some bounty hunters were trying to take out the competition. Others were after Reggie specifically, and still others were just happy to fight. The wedding party, wisely, had barricaded themselves in the bathroom. When the dust settled, 23 mercs were down. The bar was destroyed, and Reggie was bleeding from a dozen cuts but still standing. That didn't account for the massive bruises he'd feel later, though. Draken, crawling toward the exit, trailing purple blood, found himself grabbed by the collar. Another bounty hunter jumped on Draken's back and held a broken bottle to his neck, intending to kill him. Reggie felt his stomach flip with concern. Draken was a drunk idiot, and this wasn't a fair fight. Reggie slammed the assaulting alien's head into the wall and kicked him off Draken.
Bounty?
Draken gasped.
Fuck your bounty.
Reggie dragged him towards the service tunnels.
No. Behind you. The bounty hunters.
Draken warned. Reggie looked behind him to see reinforcements entering the bar.
Shit.
He grabbed Draken by the collar and lifted him up, dragging him toward the back rooms of the bar.
Come on, we gotta go.
Why? Draken's military mind couldn't process this.
Why save me?
Because, Reggie grunted, shoving the larger alien into a maintenance shaft.
Unlike you, humans don't leave the wounded behind, even the dumb ones.
They tumbled into darkness as sirens wailed above. The maintenance tunnels of Trade Station 9 were a testament to lowest bidder construction, cramped, purely lit, and inexplicably humid.
This is insane.
Draken wheezed as they crawled through 40 years of accumulated grime.
You're insane. Your entire species is insane. I just saw human buttocks on live broadcast.
Reggie chuckled.
Consider yourself lucky. By the void,
Draken started hyperventilating.
You're insane.
He repeated it again, which Reggie thought was rude.
Yeah, probably.
Reggie checked his wounds.
But we're consistently insane, which is almost like being sane if you squint. That makes no sense.
Welcome to humanity, buddy. Nothing makes sense, everything's made up, and the points don't matter. He produced a flask, and Reggie saw no reason to break tradition.
Want some?
Draken accepted the flask, took a drink, and immediately regretted every life choice that had led up to this moment.
This is industrial solvent.
Kentucky bourbon, though I understand the confusion. Reggie grinned, and Draken noticed for the first time that human canines were unnecessarily sharp for omnivores.
So,
want to see what Earth is really like?
What?
Every bounty hunter in 3 systems is about to descend on this station. Earth is about 4 jumps from here if we steal something fast. I know people who can hide you until this blows over.
Why would you?
Draken stopped.
You're using me as proof that humans are what the Council says.
I'm offering you sanctuary on a death world full of emotional support mammals and ice lattes. Reggie was already moving deeper into the tunnels. Whether that's using you or saving you probably depends on your perspective. Besides, I need your transport ship. They'll have confiscated mine already. Draken groaned. Above them, the station's emergency klaxons mixed with the sound of 50 different species of mercenaries realizing their prey had vanished and their payday with it. Draken looked at the human. Really looked. Past the blood and the scars and the inexplicable decision to save someone who just tried to collect a bounty on his head. Against every instinct 3 million years of evolution had given his species, Draken followed the human deeper into the tunnels. Together, they boarded Draken's ship and fled to Earth. Earth, as it turned out, was exactly as advertised and nothing like Draken expected. The first thing that hit him was the noise. Not the regulated hum of station life or the predictable sounds of properly managed ecosystems, but pure, chaotic cacophony. Birds screamed at each other, insects performed symphonies. Somewhere in the distance, what sounded like a small war turned out to be someone mowing their lawn. "Home sweet hell world," Reggie announced as their stolen shuttle touched down in what he generously called his backyard, and what Draken would have classified as a crash site with ambitions. A dog, an actual Earth dog, not the genetically perfected comfort animals other species bred, came tearing out of a structure that seemed to be held together by determination and what humans inexplicably called hope. The beast launched itself at Reggie with enough force to topple a lesser being. Draken flinched, remembering his last encounter with Earth canines. "This is Poppy," Reggie said, his voice shifting to the tone humans reserve for creatures they'd die for. "She's a rescue." "From what?" Draken asked, maintaining what he felt was a safe distance. "Everything. 3 legs, 1 eye, and absolutely no fear. Beat cancer. Oh, and she bit a bear once." "A bear?" "Think of a biological tank covered in knives that can climb trees." "And the dog attacked it." "Poppy doesn't understand size differentials. It's her best quality." Reggie scratched behind the dog's remaining ear. "Come on. Family's gonna want to meet you. Fair warning, they're armed." The house, and Draken used that term in the loosest possible sense, was a masterclass in human engineering. Theoretically impossible, practically functional, aesthetically criminal. Solar panels sat next to what looked like a small nuclear reactor. The garden grew earth vegetables next to plants Draken recognized as being from 12 different star systems, all of which required completely different atmospheric conditions to survive. "How?" "Grandma," Reggie said, as if invoking an elder god. "She got bored after the suburban war of '89. The what?" HOA tried to tell her that her garden gnomes were aggressively non-compliant. She disagreed, with extreme prejudice. Grandma Chip turned out to be 5 feet 2 inches of concentrated chaos in a floral print dress that had seen better days. She was on the roof, welding something to what Draken's military training identified as an anti-orbital defense cannon.
"Reggie!"
She called down an accented galactic standard that sounded like she'd learned it specifically to insult people in multiple languages.
"You bring a friend? Good. Tell him not to touch the tulips. They're armed."
The flowers are armed?" Draken asked weakly.
"Everything's armed,"
said a woman emerging from the house in what appeared to be a home-built mech suit constructed primarily from car parts and spite.
"It's Earth. Even the butterflies are probably plotting something."
She extended a mechanical hand that could have crushed steel.
"I'm Sally. You must be the asshole who stepped on a dog."
"I'm never living that down, am I?"
"On Earth,
We hold grudges about tea taxation from 3 centuries ago, so no, probably not. The neighbors, apparently alerted by some invisible human network that predicated galactic communication, began appearing like extremely friendly zombies. The Johnsons from next door brought what they claimed was a casserole, but looked like someone had declared war on nutrition and won. The Padilla family offered drinks that glowed with what was either bioluminescence or radiation. Someone fired up a barbecue. Apparently humans had invented dozens of ways to burn meat and call it cuisine. "Oh, this is insane," Draken muttered, watching a small human child chase Poppy with what his combat recognition software identified as a military-grade stun baton. "That's little Tot," Sally explained. "He's practicing for school's conflict resolution club." "Your schools teach combat?" "Only on Mondays. Wednesdays are for agriculture. Thursdays are for therapy." Draken couldn't tell if she was joking. The terrifying part was that with humans, she might not be. "Look closer," Reggie suggested, handing him what humans called beer, but what Draken's chemical sensors identified as a mild neurotoxin. So Draken looked. Past the chaos, past the impossible architecture and the casually weaponized everything, he saw something else. The Johnsons and Padillas were arguing about something called cricket versus baseball. Apparently humans had invented multiple ways to hit balls with sticks and had opinions about it. But they were sharing food while they did it. Grandma Chip had climbed down to help a neighbor fix their hover car, muttering about kids these days, despite the neighbor being at least 60 Earth years old. Sally had shed the mech suit to teach little Tot the proper way to disarm someone twice his size. "We fight," Reggie said quietly. "We argue. We do stupid things like moon the Galactic Council on live broadcast. But when it matters, when someone comes for one of us..." He didn't need to finish. Draken had fought in enough wars to recognize the thing humans called community. He had just never seen it weaponized before. "The bounty's still active," Draken pointed out. "They'll come here. Let them." Grandma Chip had appeared with a disturbing stealth common to human elderly and apex predators. "I haven't had good target practice since the Homeowners Association tried to fine me for my aesthetically non-compliant lawn flamingos." "What happened to HOA?" "We don't talk about the HOA," everyone said in unison. Draken was beginning to understand that human history was 50% things they were proud of and 50% things they had agreed never to mention again. 3 days later, the bounty hunters came. The Crimson Echo Mercenary Company, best in the sector, according to their advertising, and adequate, according to their Yelp reviews, descended on Reggie's neighborhood with adequate military professionalism and absolutely no understanding of suburban warfare. Their first mistake was landing on the Johnsons' lawn. Their second was assuming the "Beware of Dog" sign was about Poppy and not the half-feral Rottweiler named Mr. Piddles. Their third was everything that happened after. Grandma Chip's opening salvo took out their communications array, their shields, and their confidence in the natural order of the universe. The garden hose she was holding turned out to be camouflage for something that violated at least 3 galactic weapons treaties.
Suppressing fire!
She cackled with the kind of joy usually reserved for grandchildren in war crimes. The neighborhood exploded into action with the coordination of people who'd apparently been waiting their entire lives for this exact scenario. Sally's mech suit, now painted in what she called suburban camouflage, beige with hints of existential dread, burst from the garage, laying down covering fire. The Padilla's decorative water feature revealed itself to be a moat filled with something that violated the Geneva Convention's suggestions about chemical weapons. The Johnson kids had apparently been training for this since birth, turning their backyard into a maze of traps that would make a Viet Cong general weep with professional pride. Mr. Peterson, from 2 houses down, emerged with what looked like a riding lawnmower that had been crossbred with a tank. He was wearing his bathrobe and house slippers because psychological warfare is about sending messages. Draken, caught between horror and admiration, found himself back-to-back with Reggie in the living room, which had become command central for the most terrifying neighborhood watch in galactic history.
This is your defense plan?
He shouted over the sound of what was either fireworks or artillery.
Plan?
Reggie peeked around the corner, put 3 shots center mass into a Vorthan commando with a weapon that appeared to be held together with duct tape and prayer.
This is just a normal day. You should see what happens when someone parks in front of Mrs. Robertson's driveway.
A Merc crashed through the window. Poppy, all 30 pounds of 3-legged fury, latched onto somewhere unfortunate. The Merc crashed back out, hitting notes only dogs could hear.
Good girl.
Reggie called.
Poppy, disengage. He's had enough.
The dog reluctantly let go, tail wagging with the satisfaction of a job well done. Outside, the battle had turned into what humans would later call the lawn incident, and what the Crimson Echo would call the reason we don't take Earth contracts anymore. A Bathari commando tried to flank through the Padilla's backyard and discovered why Miss Padilla's tomatoes had won the county fair 12 years running. The plants were carnivorous, aggressive, and had opinions about trespassers. 2 rookies attempt to breach the Johnson house and met the twins, 8-year-olds who had been raised on a steady diet of action movies and tactical planning. They never stood a chance. The Merc commander, watching his elite unit get systematically dismantled by Surbanites in house clothes, made the fatal error of targeting Grandma Chip directly. She caught his plasma bolt in a pot lid she'd grabbed from somewhere, deflected it into his dropship's fuel tank, and followed up with something in Mandarin that made Reggie wince.
What did she say?
Draken asked.
Trust me, you don't want to know. But it involved his ancestry, his reproductive capabilities, and creative suggestions for both.
When the smoke cleared, literally, Mrs. Roberts had brought out something she called patriotic fireworks that were definitely not legal in this system. 24 of the sector's best mercenaries were down. The neighborhood was somehow mostly intact, and Grandma Chip was complaining about damage to her roses.
So,
Draken said, surveying the carnage.
this is Earth.
This is the suburbs, Sally corrected, stepping out of her mech suit and immediately checking on the tomatoes. You want to see real violence? You should see Black Friday at the shopping mall.
Black Friday?
Annual religious ceremony where humans compete for material goods using ritual combat. Again, Draken couldn't tell if she was joking. That night, as the neighbors helped clean up and discreetly looted the mercenaries' gear with the efficiency of people who'd clearly done this before, Draken found himself on Reggie's porch, watching Earth's impossible sunset paint the sky in colors his species had no names for.
I've fought in wars across half the galaxy,
he said finally.
I've seen species with technology that could crack planets. But this?
He gestured at Grandma Chip, teaching the Johnson twins how to field strip a plasma rifle while Miss Padilla distributed cookies.
You people are terrifying.
We're not terrifying, Reggie disagreed, handing him another beer.
We're human. There's a difference. What difference?
Reggie thought about it, absently scratching Poppy's head.
Terrifying implies we're trying to scare people. We're not. We're just us. Living our lives, loving our dogs, building anti-satellite lasers in our spare time. It's everyone else who decided that was scary. You weaponized a garden hose. Grandma Chip weaponized a garden hose. I just make drinks and try to keep people from killing each other in my bar. You took out 20 bucks with ball supplies. 23. And that's just good customer service.
They sat in comfortable silence, watching Poppy chase fireflies through the minefield that used to be a lawn.
I owe you an apology,
Draken said eventually.
And Earth.
I've been telling that story for years, making your people sound like primitives. Well, we did chase you with forks.
You had guns.
Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Reggie grinned. Besides, you stepped on a dog. You're lucky Dimitri only went for the fork. His sister wanted to use the good china. Your species is insane. Yeah, but we're the fun kind of insane. The kind that looks at a hostile universe and says, bet you can make friends with it. The kind that sees a problem and duct tapes a solution. The kind that names storms and adopts predators and turns eating into a social event. We're not just surviving, we're living. Messily, chaotically, but fully. The bounty's not going to go away, Draken pointed out. Neither is the Council's fear of humanity. Today was just the beginning. I know. Reggie's expression grew serious. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Me? You've seen us now, the real us. Not the scary stories or the diplomatic disasters, but he waved at his grandmother, who was now showing the neighborhood kids how to turn household chemicals into something that definitely wasn't legal. This beautiful mess. So, I ask again, what are you gonna do? Draken thought about his reputation, his career, his species' comfortable assumptions about humans. Then he thought about Poppy and Grandma Chip and neighbors who'd fight alien mercenaries to defend each other's tomatoes. I know some people, he said slowly, in the council. Old war buddies who owe me favors. If humanity had a sponsor, someone to vouch for them, that's a big risk for you. Yeah, well, Draken looked at the human who had saved his life after he had tried to collect a bounty on him. Humans aren't the only ones capable of doing stupid things for the right reasons. Now you're getting it. Reggie raised his beer. Welcome to humanity, brother. It's gonna be a weird ride. The Second Galactic Council Summit was held on Neutral Station Zero, a derelict hulk in dead space chosen specifically because it was too worthless for anyone to fight over and too isolated for anyone to escape from when things went wrong, which, given that humans were involved, was considered inevitable.
They'll moon us again,
Counselor Alex predicted, his throat sacs already pre-inflated with indignation.
or worse. I've seen the combat footage from Earth. There's savages, with nuclear weapons.
Another counselor muttered.
And dogs,
Added a third, shuddering.
have you seen what they call good boys? They're pack predators that humans taught to love them. They're either brilliant or terrifying.
Both, suggested someone who had clearly done their homework. Draken stood at the podium, feeling the weight of 100 species' expectations and the uncomfortable formal robes that all looked like someone who had described fashion secondhand to someone who hated joy. Behind him, Reggie waited with the human delegation. Not diplomats this time, just regular people. A teacher who had volunteered because someone needs to explain Common Core math to the universe. A mechanic who had fixed the shuttle on the way over using what appeared to be hope and zip ties. A farmer who had brought back snacks. Grandma Chip, who had somehow smuggled a purse full of necessities past security. The necessities turned out to be smoke bombs, hard candies, and photos of her grandchildren. And Poppy, who had been registered as an emotional support companion through a loophole in galactic law that no one had thought to close because no one had expected humans. Honored counselors, Draken began, trying not to think about how Grandma Chip was already eyeing the nearest exit.
I stand before you as sponsor for humanity, invoking the right of advocacy.
Murmurs rippled through the assembly like someone had thrown a stone into a pond of sentient anxiety. The rite was ancient, dating back to when the first species had achieved spaceflight and immediately started arguing about parking spaces. A member species could vouch for a new one, sharing in their glory or their shame. It hadn't been used in 3 centuries, mostly because no one wanted that kind of responsibility.
You?
Alex's throat sacs achieved what medical professionals would later describe as anatomically improbable inflation.
The great Drakon the Unbroken. Terror of the Outer Rings, scourge of the Proximan rebels, vouching for these humans,
Draken said firmly.
Yes, I've fought them. I've lived among them. I've seen them at their worst and their best. And I tell you now, we need them.
They're unstable!
Someone shouted from the back.
They're adaptable,
Drakon countered.
When the Proximan plague hit Colony 7, who developed the cure? Humans, using something they call folk medicine and spite.
They're violent!
They're protective. They'll fight to defend their pack, and once you're in their pack, they'll die for you. How many species here can say the same?
They flipped off the entire council!
You spent 20 minutes insulting their planet, their technology, and their internet. You're lucky all they did was show you their least flattering angle.
Alex's colors shifted through spectrums of outrage.
The chaos incarnate! Yes,
Draken agreed enthusiastically.
and that's exactly why we need them. Counselors, look around. Look at what we've become. 500 species, all following the same rules, the same patterns, the same predictable paths. We've achieved order. Congratulations. We've also achieved stagnation.
He paused, letting that sink in.
Humans are chaos, but chaos isn't always bad. Chaos is innovation. It's creativity. It's looking at the universe's rules and saying, that's nice, but what if we tried it this way instead? It's turning garden hoses into weapons and dogs into family. It's naming storms and adopting predators and somehow growing incompatible plants in the same garden through sheer, stubborn refusal to accept impossibility.
Pretty sure the tomatoes are actually sentient, Reggie muttered behind him.
When the Verong Mining Consortium tried to claim Earth's moon,
Draken continued,
humans didn't file a formal complaint. They didn't request arbitration. They duct-taped rocket engines to asteroids and played what they called cosmic billiards until the consortium decided that maybe they didn't want the moon that badly after all.
Several counselors looked ill. The Veron representative looked like he was reconsidering several life choices.
When the Bathari Empire demanded Earth's cultural databases, humans didn't negotiate. They sent them their entire internet, unfiltered. The Empire's AI systems are still trying to understand what a meme is and why humans find them significant. Their military intelligence network crashed trying to decode something called emoji. That was psychological warfare!
The Bathari representative protested.
That was normal!
Grandma Chip interjected, then looked innocent when everyone stared at her.
We don't need humanity because they're perfect,
Draken said, bringing it home.
We need them because they're not. Because they'll question us, challenge us, make us uncomfortable. Because they'll moon tyrants and fight for dogs and somehow convince warrior races that their elderly grandmother is the most dangerous person in the room.
She is, several humans said in unison.
We need them because they're the only species crazy enough to look at an impossible universe and say, hold my beer.
I want to try something. We need them, because in a galaxy of order, they're the beautiful, chaotic, duct tape and determination reminder that sometimes the best solution isn't the logical one, it's the human one.
Silence descended on the assembly like a confused blanket. Then, from the back,
Did they really bring a dog?
Poppy, as if on cue, barked. It wasn't an aggressive bark. It was the bark of a three-legged, one-eyed survivor who'd been rescued from certain death and given a silly name and all the love a chaotic species could offer. It was the bark of Earth in canine form. Broken but not beaten, scarred but not scared, technically disadvantaged but emotionally unstoppable. The assembly erupted, some in outrage, some in laughter, most in the kind of confused noise that happened when 500 species tried to process something outside their experience. And in that chaos, that beautiful, unplanned, distinctly human chaos, everything went wrong in exactly the right way. The Veron assassin had been patient. Weeks of planning, bribes, and surgical alteration had gotten him this far. The chaos of the dog was perfect cover. His target wasn't the humans. It was Counselor Meridian, the only one who had discovered the truth about the pre-planned bounty. The Varans had come prepared. This wasn't a spontaneous reaction to humanity's diplomatic middle finger. This was a trap years in the making. They'd seen humanity's chaotic rise, their refusal to follow galactic norms, their tendency to solve problems with solutions that made other species nervous. Earth was a threat to the established order, and the Varons had invested too much in that order to let humans upset it. The bounty had been pre-written, waiting in the system like a loaded weapon. All they'd needed was an excuse to pull the trigger. The mooning had been perfect, shocking enough to justify extreme measures, memorable enough that no one would question the response. Now, with Meridian about to expose the conspiracy, they needed her gone. The assassin moved through the crowd, weapon charging silently. His cover was perfect, just another aid in the chaos of the assembly. Reggie saw him first. Not the weapon. Anyone could spot that if you were looking. He saw the walk, the purposeful stride of someone about to do violence in a room full of bystanders. The way crowds unconsciously parted for predators. 23 years of bar fights had taught him that violence had a rhythm, and this asshole was out of tune.
Gone!
Reggie shouted, already moving. The assassin fired. Reggie tackled Counselor Meridian, taking the plasma bolt in the shoulder. They hit the ground hard, Reggie's body shielding the insectoid diplomat whose species had never evolved for violence. Grandma Chip's purse turned out to contain more than smoke bombs. The first canister filled the air with dense smoke that somehow smelled like lavender. The second released what she called glitter bombs, but what military scientists would later classify as chaff grenades with psychological warfare applications. Sally, who'd somehow fit a collapsible mech suit in diplomatic robes, because of course she had, provided cover fire with stun rounds that may or may not have been calibrated for diplomatic incidents. The teacher organized an evacuation with the efficiency of someone who had handled middle schoolers during fire drills. The mechanic and farmer tag-teamed the assassin, using what appeared to be improvised weapons made from council furniture and pure determination. Poppy bit someone important. Given the chaos, it was unclear which side they were on, but Poppy had made an executive decision and was sticking with it. When security finally arrived, 43 seconds too late as usual, they found the human delegation had already contained the situation, provided first aid, organized witnesses, and somehow made tea?
How?
Alex demanded, staring at the neutralized assassin, the saved counselor, and the humans casually debriefing each other like this was a normal Thursday.
Neighborhood watch,
Grandma Chip explained, offering him a hard candy.
very important for community safety. Would you like some tea? It's earth-grown, only slightly radioactive.
Counselor Meridian, still shaking from nearly being assassinated, looked up at Reggie, who was being patched up with what appeared to be duct tape and determination.
You saved me. A human saved me.
Yeah, well, Reggie winced as the farmer applied something that looked medical adjacent to his shoulder. You seem like you were having a bad day.
But the bounty, your species, I voted against human membership.
So? The farmer finished his field dressing with the experience of someone who had dealt with farming equipment in teenagers. Just because someone's wrong doesn't mean they deserve to die. That's not how neighbors work.
I'm not your neighbor. I'm not even in your star system. Everyone's a neighbor if you zoom out enough, the teacher said philosophically. It's just a matter of perspective.
Meridian's compound eyes tried to process this. The Verons, they planned this. The bounty was already in the system. They were waiting for an excuse. Yeah, we figured, Reggie said. Humans are real good at pattern recognition, especially patterns that look like someone's trying to screw us over.
You knew?
Suspected, but suspicion's not proof. Thanks for confirming it, though. The council reconvened an hour later. After security had swept the station, the glitter had been mostly cleaned up. It would never be completely gone. Grandma Chip's glitter was as permanent as human stubbornness, and someone had explained to Poppy that not everyone wanted to be friends. The vote, when it came, wasn't unanimous. Alex held out until the end, his throat sacs deflating only when it became clear that opposing humanity now meant opposing the counselor they'd just saved. But it was decisive. Humanity was welcomed into the galactic community not as subjects or vassals, but as equals. The bounty was lifted. The Veron conspiracy was exposed, leading to what diplomats would later call the most satisfying perp walk in galactic history. And if some counselors noticed that their decision had been influenced by equal parts admiration, gratitude, and healthy fear of what humans might do if pushed, well, that was just democracy in action.
One condition,
Alex said, his colors shifting to reluctant acceptance.
the dog stays on Earth.
Actually, Counselor Meridian spoke up, I was hoping, that is, if it's acceptable, might Poppy visit sometimes for diplomatic purposes. Poppy barked approval.
She says yes.
Reggie translated. But, you have to provide treats. And so humanity entered the galactic stage, not with fanfare or ceremony, but with a three-legged dog, duct tape diplomacy, and the universe's newest understanding that sometimes the best solutions came from the species crazy enough to moon their problems and then fix them with garden hoses and determination. Kessler's Cantina had been rebuilt again. The same dive bar aesthetic, but with better structural integrity, blast-resistant windows, and a prominent sign reading, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone." Draken sat in his old booth, watching the news feeds.
Exhausting,
He said, shaking his head.
Yesterday they asked me to explain why humans say bless you when someone sneezes. I told them it was to prevent soul escape. They believed me.
Is it not? Reggie asked with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes.
It took me a year to realize that's not the point,
Draken admitted, swirling the bourbon in his glass.
You don't have answers for the universe's mysteries. You just have traditions, little rituals for kindness to get you through the dark.
You haven't cured death, so you've perfected the art of living with it.
He looked up from his drink, his gaze meeting Reggie's in the mirror behind the bar.
The rest of the galaxy was so busy trying to live forever, they forgot how to live at all.
On the main screen, a news report showed the Varan homeworld. After the Council's sanctions, their rigid top-down society had collapsed into a famine and civil war. But the ships arriving weren't warships. They were a fleet of mismatched, cobbled-together freighters bearing Earth's flag alongside dozens of others. They were delivering doctors, engineers, and what the human coordinators called a stupid amount of emergency rations. A grizzled human woman, Grandma Chip of course, was directing the offloading, arguing in fluent Varan with a local official about the proper way to set up a soup kitchen. The galaxy called it the Humanitarian Initiative. Reggie called it duct tape diplomacy. This was humanity's true conquest. They didn't win their place among the stars with warships or threats, but with casseroles and chaos, with a stubborn refusal to leave anyone behind. They hadn't just been accepted into the galaxy, they had remade it in their own image. They took a silent, orderly, sterile universe and filled it with noise, with art, with arguments about pineapple and pizza, with neighborhood watches that spanned star systems, and with hope. The Council had feared their mortality, but humanity taught them that a finite life is what gives it meaning. They had mocked their primitive technology, but humanity showed them that the most powerful tool is a stubborn mind that refuses to accept the word impossible. They had called them chaos, and humanity had proved them right. It was the chaos of a wildfire clearing out dead wood, the chaos of a thunderstorm breaking a drought, the chaos of a heart starting to beat again in a chest that had long been silent. The galaxy didn't need another ancient orderly race. It needed a jolt of beautiful, messy, indomitable life. It needed its soul back. And somewhere on Neutral Station Zero, a three-legged, one-eyed dog named Poppy was curled up at the feet of Counselor Meridian, officially registered not as a pet, but as a therapeutic asset for galactic stability. Because, in the end, humanity's greatest gift to the cosmos wasn't a technology or a philosophy, it was a reminder that even in the cold, unforgiving vacuum of space, there was nothing that couldn't be improved with a little bit of warmth, a lot of love, and a good dog.